actual streaming software instead of using the built-in Google Hangouts on YouTube. I'm hoping this is going to make the quality better. But this is my first time, so I am just kind of getting into it, making sure everything is set up and good to go, and then we will get into the practice session. All right, and while I'm here, going to share this live stream with all my various social media things. So if you happen to be tuning in right here when we start, you get to see this very exciting stuff that I do. Bach Minuet, I will probably play that. I'm going to be definitely playing some Bach, and once I get everything all set up and good to go here, I'm going to talk a little bit about everything I'm going to play. So let me know if there's, oh, thank you so much that you like my interpretation. Let me know if there's any problems with audio. C and G strings, all my strings are by Damian Dolugugolecki. I don't really know how to say his last name. He goes by Damian. His website is damianstrings.com. But he makes all my gut strings, and I just love his strings. So definitely check out his website. And he's really helpful too if you have questions about like which gauge you should use. He's been really helpful to me. I've been getting my strings from him for 8 years now, so yeah. Okay, does everything sound okay, you guys? I'm gonna get playing soon. This is my first time doing a new tech setup for my live stream, so I just wasn't sure how everything was gonna sound. But if everything is sounding and looking okay, I'm just gonna get rolling. Seems okay. Oh, I'm out of sync with my audio. I wonder what I can do. Are you guys noticing that my audio and my video are not totally synced up? Because I know that can be, yeah, that's frustrating. So let's see what I can do about that. I can change some stuff around. I'm just hoping I won't mess anything up by doing that. Let's see. Well, I can't take that out. I think this is the best I'm going to be able to do without disconnecting the internet. So I hope that won't be really unpleasant to watch. 1 or 2 seconds behind, that's going to be pretty annoying for watching. Especially for watching cello. Personally, for me, it always bothers me when things are out of sync. So, but I'm not so sure I'm going to be able to do anything about that on my setup. Because you probably don't care about the technical details, but I'm running the microphone and the camera through a different USB thing. Let's try one thing. I'm going to switch to a different camera, which is not as good of a picture, but it might be more in sync, and you guys can let me know what you prefer. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if this actually updates in regular time. Okay, so here's another camera. How is this looking in terms of how it's synced up with everything? Just let me know. The audio is a couple seconds ahead of the video. Yeah, not surprised. Okay, so you should be seeing the new camera now. Let me know if you're seeing the new camera and how it compares in terms of delay. And thank you guys for helping me with this. Once I get this down, then I'll have this set up forever and I'll be able to do good streams. But streaming is definitely trial and error. Yeah, I could use the same. I like to use a separate microphone, especially for cello. You know, I think having good audio quality makes a huge difference, and a lot of the built-in things just don't sound very good for cello. So I gotta figure out how to get everything synced up. It's not synced, but it's a bit better. Okay, I'm gonna use this camera, even though the other one looks better. And I'm gonna try to figure this out because I want to make a really great looking stream so that I can do this stuff all the time. So, thanks for your help. I guess I'm gonna go over to my cello now and get started with everything. But I will have, oops. There you go. So I do have over here, let me get it going, a laptop so that I can see what you guys are saying and try to keep up with questions and stuff as I take breaks from playing. Yeah, I guess it's pretty dark, huh? Now that I'm using this other camera. Let's see if this makes it a little better. Okay. Katja, I'm glad it's in sync for you. I'm glad it's in sync for somebody, yeah. All right, and then let me know how cello audio sounds too, if it's too loud, too quiet. Just let me know. So Rob, I'm using a webcam, so it doesn't have an audio in at all. You know, usually for streaming, you can't use like a regular nice camera. You have to use a camera specifically for streaming. So because of that, they usually don't have audio ins. But there's got to be a way to get this really good, so I'll keep working on it. Okay, so I'm going to get tuned up, and then I'll tell you guys what I'm doing. Let me know if now that I'm further away, if the audio is still loud enough. Okay, so it was Thanksgiving, which I actually didn't do much. I was here working on other YouTube videos, but I haven't actually played my cello in probably a week. It's been a while. I was just taking care of a lot of stuff. I got strep throat last week, so I was just all over the place, haven't played and sat down, and I was like, you know what? It would be great motivation for me to just do a stream of my practice session, returning to the cello after taking a break. Later this week, I have a gig playing for the old State House here in Boston, so it's like a historical site. And for their holiday party, they like to have historical music, so I'm going to be playing solo cello for their party. And I'm going to be playing for 2 hours, all unaccompanied music, so it's a great time to brush up on my solo Bach and my bass sounds repertoire and just all the music that I play for solo cello. So I thought it would be a good idea to do a little stream of kind of refreshing myself on the repertoire, going through my warm-ups and my scales, just kind of getting back into playing again. So you guys are seeing my raw, real, haven't played for a week playing, but I think that's good, it's honest, and it keeps me accountable, right? So I think it's a good idea. So I always start with scales. If you've seen any of my live streams or my practice streams before, you probably know my scale routine by now. But yeah, scales are everything, especially, you know, on an instrument that isn't fretted. It's so important to play scales and just really know your fingerboard territory and take that time. So I'm just going to kind of get into it now. I usually go through my scales in circle of fifths, and I only go up to 3 sharps and 3 flats because realistically in Baroque repertoire you don't really play in the other keys, and then it gives me more time to sort of repeat through important keys that I'm probably going to play in. All right, my cello's a little cranky, it hasn't been played, it's got a little drive, it's all good. So I always start on a long bow stroke legato. It's a great way to just kind of get your weight into the string, and if you're playing with a Baroque bow, feeling the curve of the bow, meaning getting that nice swell in the middle of the stroke and a taper at the end, and then having a slightly lighter up bow than a down bow. So those are all the things I'm thinking about when I'm doing a legato stroke. And then I usually switch to a long, short stroke, which you'll see I'm going to do next. Vera, your question, how do I tune to Baroque tuning? If you mean my strings, I just tune to A 415, which is a half step lower than your regular A at 440. So for perfect pitch people, it sounds like a G sharp. So I just tune my A half step lower and then all the strings along with that. So now I'll go into my long, short stroke. It's basically an elaboration on the legato stroke because everything stays legato and smooth, but you use a little more finger motion for your smaller notes, so you'll see. Daisy, my cat's drinking out of my water glass. Okay, well I guess it's her water glass now. How rude, Daisy. That's okay. I let her do what she wants. Okay, and that hissing is my radiator, so I'll turn the heat down. Maybe I should get my cat a real bowl of water. How you doing, Daisy? Okay, so shifting. So my thoughts on shifting. Shifting should always be legato. I think a lot of times we're tempted to like pick up the finger. You want to make sure that your finger is always staying in contact with the string. It doesn't have to be pushing down the string the whole time, but to still be in contact with the string when you're shifting is really important. And then drilling shifts. So like, for example, I think sometimes even small shifts can be harder than large shifts. But let's take a large shift, like a first position to fourth position, and I'll show you how I would practice that. So it can make you a little seasick, but if you go slow enough, that really helps your muscle memory learn the territory, because if you're always doing that, you can actually end up being pretty inaccurate and not having a way to work on it because you're going so fast that you can't actually learn exactly what that geography is. And make sure that you're not passing the shift. You should be going slow enough that you can hear yourself arrive at the pitch you want. If you're going past it, then you're not going slow enough. You want to be able to listen. And then once you've got that going with the sort of legato smooth sound, then you can take out the slur and start drilling just back and forth between the shifts. And it works for small shifts too. But really you need that careful, mindful repetition to really get the shifts learned. Don't let me drink that water that my cat drank. I guess there's a delay on the stream, so if you see me drinking it, it'll already be too late, but I need to remember that my cat drank out of that water. Okay, back to scales. So I just did A. I'm going to go into my flat scales now. Okay, now that I've gone around circle fifths in my legato bow patterns, I'm going to do some of my shorter bow patterns. I use some rhythms that I got from the Sevchek bow exercise book back in grad school, but I've sort of made it into my own little routine of various different short bow strokes using eighth notes, triplets, etc. So you'll hear as I go around what kind of rhythms I do and articulations. Oh, hi, Cutman. So you missed for our little technical issue, which was that so my external webcam is very out of sync with my audio, even though both my microphone and my external webcam are plugged into the same USB hub. The webcam was really behind the audio, so I switched to my built-in camera, which is not as good quality, but is slightly closer to in sync. But no matter what, my audio and my video are a little bit out of sync, apparently, according to the audience. So we're kind of troubleshooting and wondering, I don't think there's much I can do now because of how everything's set up, but I want to eventually be able to get my audio and my video perfectly in sync. So we're kind of brainstorming how to do that with a webcam and an external mic. So that's the update on the technical setup stuff. Okay, back to scales. What did I just do? Okay, I think I did E flat, so now I'm back to C major. Always got to put a dotted rhythm bow stroke in your warm-up. I usually do it last because that's something we see in Baroque repertoire a lot, dotted rhythms that are not hooked, because we usually hook them in more modern playing, hook meaning down, down, up, down, down, up. But we, in more Baroque stylistic playing, we separate it out, so you've got to be able to do down, up, down, up, down. And to do that fast with changing notes is actually a little difficult, so it's a good thing to put in your warm-ups. Daryl, how much changing did you go through before going with gut strings? Well, actually none at all, because when I did my first Baroque festival, which was the Oberlin Baroque Performance Institute, they were giving advice on, getting strings and a bow and all of that stuff, and they suggested Damien for gut strings. So I tried his strings, and I absolutely loved them from the beginning, and I never really had reason to change. I did, I think at first I only used Damien's A and his D, his open gut, and then I was using, probably the first thing that I was using was, I don't think it was Eudoxa. It might have been. There's Eudoxa makes gut strings, and Gold Label, Perastro Gold Label is probably what I used first. Then I upgraded to Eudoxa. These are just for the bottom strings. And then eventually I just started using Damien's bottom strings because I like his strings and he's super helpful and awesome. So I've been using his strings mostly and just played around with my bottom strings a bit. So yeah, I haven't done a ton of trial and error, but you know, I hear people trying. I do think violins and higher instruments have different preferences on which gut strings they like. But for cello, most people I talk to really like Damien strings, so that's always what I've used. How do I stop the high notes on the A string from sounding really squeaky? You know, that's the way Baroque instruments sound. Just kidding. Yeah, getting the A string to not squeak is a lifelong journey. It never really is 100% gone. I mean, that's the way the A string sounds sometimes. But there's a couple of different things that will make it sound that way. Dryness is a big one, depending on what kind of climate you live in. So if you live somewhere where it gets dry in the winter or the heat is on, or you just don't have a lot of humidity in the air naturally, desert climates and stuff, you'll definitely want to humidify your cello also because that's good for your instrument, but also making sure your strings are humidified. I sometimes put a little bit of olive oil on my strings, like maybe I want to say less than a teaspoon, basically a dab, onto a paper towel and lightly rub it into the strings and then sort of rub off any excess. Don't do it where the bow goes, but you can do it up on the string, and that will help temporarily because it helps moisturize the string, but really just keeping it in a more humid environment if you can will help a lot with the squeaks. And then your bow technique, gut strings will let you know when your bow pressure or your bow speed is not right by squawking at you. So in general, too fast a bow speed on gut strings can be pretty problematic. So I would experiment with slowing down your bow speed. I think that's the biggest transition from steel to gut, is that you have to use a slower bow speed. Do I have a scale book? Not anymore. I'm trying to think if I've ever used any. I've mostly just written out my scales. This is what I do for my students also. I write out the scales with the fingerings that I like, and then I decide on different bowing patterns and exercises. I have some standard ones that I use, like what I just used on my warm-ups. And then I also will like look at a piece that I'm working on and say, oh, there's this tricky bowing, or I have a lot of 1/8, 2/16 in this piece, and then I'll take that rhythm and apply it to a scale. So I'm a kind of do-it-yourself person when it comes to scales. I know there are a lot of good books out there, I just don't have a lot of experience using them. Okay, so now I feel nice and warmed up after doing those scales. How long did I do that for? Maybe 20 minutes? Not a huge amount of time, but really it makes such a difference to just spend a little time playing scales. So I feel comfortable going into some repertoire now, which will definitely be a little more interesting. So I'm just going to check all my notifications and all that stuff before getting into repertoire. All right. Okay. You know what I should do, while I have a second, if you'll bear with me, is let my patrons on Patreon know that I am live, even though if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, which I hope you are if you're watching this, you should get notified when I go live, which is kind of cool. But also, my Patreon patrons are like my ultimate fans. They're the main reason that I've been able to do so much with my YouTube channel, because having the patronage for each video allows me to, turn down other freelance work that I may have and spend that time making videos, recording videos, doing streams like this. It just gives me really the flexibility to invest in my channel, which I love. I'm so happy with it because it lets me reach so many people and talk to so many people that I couldn't do in just a normal classical music setting at a concert or something like that. So this stream is going to be supported by my Patreon patrons. So I'm letting them know. I have kind of like a private email list that goes out to all of them when I post a new video, and I usually include some information. So it's a really cool way to be kind of like an insider on the channel. Okay. So now my patrons know. We get back to stuff. Thoughts on Baroque approach to Bach's Arioso. Is that the one that's in the Suzuki books? I think for cello, it's the Suzuki book 5, maybe? Yeah, such a beautiful piece, and it's not exactly Baroque because it is, of course, an arrangement. At least in the cello books, it's an arrangement with the cello playing the melody. But there are a lot of different things that you can apply to that arioso that I've talked about a bit in other videos. Like I do have a video under my instructional videos playlist. I have like a playing Baroque music on modern instruments video, and I talk a little bit about the things that you can apply automatically that will just make your playing sound more stylistic. One of the big things, I think especially in arioso, is like dialing back the vibrato, and that doesn't mean taking expressiveness away necessarily. It means finding other ways to be expressive besides vibrato, and usually that's like looking for the dissonances and looking for the notes of tension, and usually kind of adding some bow pressure and some intense bow sound in those tense moments, and then releasing on the resolutions. That's going to give you a nice arc of expressiveness without just vibrating on every note. So that's a big one. Because everything is harmonically driven in the Baroque period, and I think some modern interpretations forget that. So the more you can play with the accompaniment and hear what harmony is going on, it will inform a lot of your interpretation more so than following a linear line. But the Bach Arioso is really beautiful. I would love to even just record that sometime and maybe give some people some things to think about with that. The music of Handel and Vivaldi. What difference do you see when you compare with Bach? Handel, Vivaldi, Bach, I mean, big guys with a very distinct style. I think it's hard to say exactly how I see them differently. I think Vivaldi, he had the most sort of wild Italian spirit. He really liked a sort of more show-offy nature for the most part, and wasn't afraid to really recycle his own material a lot. I mean, if you listen to Vivaldi concertos, they start to all blend together after a while. Vivaldi was, I think, in a lot of ways very flashy. Bach was not flashy. Bach was dense. I think that Bach is one of those composers that you come back to later in life, and you only see more and more from him as you look at his music. As you get older and more mature, you find deeper meaning and more musicality as you study his pieces. So Bach has depth that just goes on forever. Handel, I think, in some ways he's a little bit of a middle ground. I think that a lot of Handel's music A lot of it can feel fluffy and easily digestible and upbeat, but I think in some ways it does have a slightly more serious quality than some of Vivaldi's music, but it doesn't go quite as dense as Bach. And then if you want to talk about national styles, I mean, the German style and English style and Italian style, all of these regions also kind of had their own compositional techniques. And we do see that a little bit, though Handel was trying to write in Italian style and French style, and Bach was trying to write in Italian style and French style. So there's a lot of overlap, but I think mostly it's not so much in genre, because the composers all wrote a similar breadth of work. It's more just in their own kind of personal flavor and, their sort of artistic voice, which I think is a little bit kind of a personal thought. I'm sure musicologists can debate all day who's better, Vivaldi or Handel, but I think it comes down to personal taste after a point. Okay. All right, so let's get into some repertoire now. The strings are getting pretty cranky because I turned the humidifier off for the stream, but that's okay. We'll be all right. The G of the third Bach cello suite. So I think I'm only going to be playing the first suite on this stream, but I love the third suite. I'd love to do the third suite sometime soon. So yeah, speaking of repertoire, let's get into repertoire. So I think I'm going to start with these Vitali. Oh, there goes my binder. With these Vitali Ciconas, which I guess could be really for any solo bass instrument. They're 17th century pieces, but I love them on cello. I've recorded some on my channel, so you have maybe heard me play them before if you're a regular on my channel. But I will be playing them for this gig this week. And I just love them. They're ground bass pieces, so they have an implied repeating bass line in all of them, which are just like my favorite thing ever. So I'm going to be taking a lot of my stuff at practice tempos today because, like I said, I haven't played in about a week. I just did my warm-ups, which felt great, but I think I still need to take it slow right now and focus on just getting back in the groove. Alright, well that's enough to wake you up after not playing for a while. So, these 17th century pieces always have a lot of separate bow 16th notes, which is a good stroke to practice. And the way that I like to try to make them clean is using as little bow as possible with a very kind of sticky, stuck bow stroke. It sounds bad if you play it isolated, but once it's fast, that really helps it stay clean and keeps the clarity on the gut strings, which is fairly hard to do. So I'll go through the 16th note runs here and just kind of practice those. So it's good to always practice your 16 notes. What did I just do to my bridge? I wondered if anybody was going to realize that. So I'm kind of anal about making sure my bridge is always like completely straight. Let's see if we can. So it looks pretty good, I think. You know, totally perpendicular from the instrument. And because, especially when you're tuning with the pegs all the time, you can really pull your bridge after a while with big peg tuning. So rather than wait for my bridge to get really warped and then, get it fixed, I usually apply just a little bit of pressure, usually pushing the bridge that way because the pegs pull it that way, just to keep it straight and in line because a little, peg tuning will pull it a little bit. And the instrument really sounds a lot better when the bridge is perfectly in place. So that's what I was doing. So the 16 notes, it's good to practice those kinds of things really unmusically and very methodical and mathematical and exactly in time. And then you can add your expressive timing. Because as you probably noticed, I'm not playing my 16th note runs like a metronome. But it's good to practice them like a metronome and then add in your flexibility. So now I'll play those passages with the musical phrasing that I want. So I pick some notes that I want to elongate, some things I want to put commas in, usually register jumps. Like if you see an octave jump or even a fifth jump or something, you really want to probably make that like a new entrance. So for example, 16th note is an octave up, so I naturally am going to put a little pause there. And then we go up to an A, and then we come back, but we repeat the A. So I like to see that first A as the resolution, and then the next A is the part of the next phrase. So I put a little comma in there too. And you can kind of make these decisions for yourself, but I think a lot of rules of Baroque principles make it sort of obvious. The next one. It also helps to elongate a note that is reiterating a bass harmony. So when I have a figure like this, we have F as the first 16th, and then G. So that goes along with our bass line. So I bring out the F and the G because those are important harmonic notes, instead of just carrying through completely in tempo. Okay, so now that I worked on this a little bit, I'm going to play it through again and then move on to some more Vitali. Oh, I messed it up. Not practiced enough. I'll back up a couple measures. Okay, another Vitali, this one in B flat. My teacher says to stay off open strings. Is it better to sometimes play open or jump all the way to fourth? Okay, so Daryl, you're asking a question about regular cello, or as I call modern cello. So just so you know, what I'm playing is a Baroque cello, so it's a little bit different. As you can see, it has no end pin. The bow is shaped differently. I'm playing on different strings. My fingerboard is shorter. So my instrument is a little different. What you're asking is like a regular modern cello. So on modern cello, we like to avoid open strings because we want to be able to use vibrato and kind of control the tone of the string by closing it. And I think on modern cello, it's not a big deal if you're comfortable shifting to shift up to fourth position and play a closed note, as long as it doesn't put a big hiccup in your music to do a shift like that. I think it's okay to shift up to fourth position if you're in first. But the Baroque cello that I'm playing more like they did back in the old days during the Baroque period, which was like the 1700s. And back then, they didn't do that. They didn't shift up. They played a lot of open strings. And since I'm trying to play more in that style, you're going to see me playing a lot of open strings. But for modern cello, it's a little bit different. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so that's my Vitali. I guess I could play that Vitali once more a little bit faster. That's probably what I should do because that was pretty under tempo what I just played. So I'll play this Vitali once more, a little bit faster, and then maybe we'll go into some Bach. I know Bach's always a fan favorite. Okay, maybe some Bach now. No, I could use a drink of water, and if you saw at the beginning of the stream, my cat drank out of my water glass. So that's what I get for leaving it on the floor. I'm gonna get some new water. I'll be right back. There you go. You want this? Back with water for me and for Daisy. Go drink it. Go drink it, Daisy. She's frisky. Okay. How long are my practice sessions usually? It totally depends. When I'm in like super serious, gotta get stuff done, like I'm preparing for something that's a really big deal, I love to have like a 3-hour practice session if I can. But realistically, not really. It totally depends what I'm doing. If I have a gig and I just need to learn some music and just like spend some time looking it over, I might only practice for 45 minutes. But if I'm really working on technique, working on solo repertoire, I need to spend more time. I like to shoot for like an hour or 2 hours maybe. But it really just depends on the day. I think professional life is a lot more varied. When I was in school, I had kind of a better routine, and it was much more clear what my objectives were, so it was easier to have a more concrete practice schedule. Okay, so I'm going to get into the first Bach cello suite in G major. Maybe start with the Allemande, because that's I think it's actually a great warm-up piece. It's hard technically in certain places, but it just keeps on flowing, and I think it's just a great way to kind of get going on Bach. Probably can't totally see, but I did get Daisy her own bowl of water. And there's my cat. Hi Luis, welcome. Welcome to the live stream, all the way from Brazil. And if you can't hear all the extra noise going on, my cat is sprinting across the apartment. I didn't realize this was her workout hour, but you know, cat's gotta do what a cat's gotta do. Ignatius Francis, thank you so much. You love my bow, thank you. Anon Chels, do I ever get my hair caught under my fingers? Yes, I do. Not only can it get caught under your fingers, it can also get caught on your pegs here. So see, there, it's happening right now. That is totally a thing that can happen. So yes, there are some ways to deal with it, but yeah, it's hard for me to be totally hair down if I'm playing something difficult because inevitably the hair will grab on. Oh, someone from the UK. Hey, Michael, how's it going? So my strings are actually getting pretty squeaky, so I think why not do the olive oil thing that I was talking about. So I'm going to go grab some olive oil from my kitchen, and I'll show you how I put olive oil on my strings to help with squeaking. Could probably use some rosin too. Oh my gosh, Daisy. Okay, so I am using organic extra virgin olive oil just because that's what I have in my kitchen. I just put a little dab here. I don't know if you can see with how bright it is. A little dab on this paper towel, and I'm gonna like push the paper towel together so it's not super wet. Probably you could use a soft cloth, might even be better than a paper towel. Oh hey Authentic Sound, how's it going? Authentic Sound has an awesome channel too for early music. If you're interested in early music, you should definitely check out his channel. So now I'm gonna take the little wet spot of olive oil, and on my strings up here, not where the bow goes, I'm just gonna lightly rub it in. And because it's not really dripping, it's not actually making my strings that greasy. It's gonna absorb pretty quick. And yes, Daryl, there's actually no end pin on the Baroque cello. They hadn't invented it yet, if you can believe that. A little bit later in the Baroque period, I can't believe my cat right now. She wants the attention. A little bit later in the Baroque period, they invented like short wooden end pins. That was the first thing they had. They didn't have those enormous metal end pins that we saw later. So anyway, just rubbing the oil into the strings. And then if there's any excess, you can use a clean part of the paper towel to get it off the fingerboard, but usually I find it absorbs right in. It might make your strings go out of tune though if it actually gets some real moisture in there. Daisy, calm down. Calm down. This is my crazy cat. Look at her. I love her. Usually she's sleeping like an angel, but not today. Or not right now, anyway. Okay. Okay, Authentic Sound, when I'm all done with my stream, I'll be sure to check yours out. The oil should work on violin strings too. You probably need even less of it. So definitely only use a little bit at a time and sort of see how your strings react. No, Daisy, that one's not yours. She's driving me crazy today. Cat owners will understand. All right. Stretching's always good. I'm actually really surprised at how difficult it is to play after not playing for about a week. But your body gets used to something and then it gets used to not doing something, so. Gut strings don't necessarily need oil, but it does help if you're in a drier climate. It just adds a little bit of moisture into the string. Okay, I feel not quite ready for the courant of this suite, so maybe I'll do the minuets. And somebody asked for the minuets at the beginning of the stream, so hopefully they're still in here. So these are the minuets from Bach's first cello suite in G major. I don't know if olive oil, the question was, does olive oil work on other strings besides gut strings? I don't think so. Um, Gut strings are a natural material, obviously, so they dry out in a way that a steel string is not going to dry out. I can't speak for nylon strings or like a synthetic string. I've never used those before. But in terms of steel versus gut, I don't think oil is going to do anything for steel except make it greasy. But because gut is natural and it dries out, the oil replenishes that moisture. Do I get asked to play weddings? I guess I have. I don't do a lot of wedding gigs, really, because typically they are kind of specific with what they want, and I'm kind of specific with what I play, which is usually just Baroque repertoire. I have done weddings, like with string quartets and stuff. You know, usually they want to hear Pachelbel's canon, which everybody complains about, but as a Baroque cellist, I have no problem with Pachelbel's canon. It's a beautiful piece. Yes, the bass line repeats itself. That's called a ground bass. It's a very common form from the Baroque period, where the bass player plays the same thing over and over again. That's normal. You don't have to complain about that. That's a genre. It drives me nuts that people are like, the part is so boring. It's like, maybe you're boring. Maybe you're playing it boring. Like, it's supposed to repeat itself. That's what a ground bass is all about. If you don't know what a ground bass is, I have some videos on my channel about ground basses, and you should learn about them. I think they're awesome. I love ground bass pieces. Even if I have to play the same 8 notes over and over again, I do not mind. Okay. So, more Bach. Maybe I'll do the Sarabande next. I'm like surprised at how fatigued I'm getting, but this was a good learning experience to know that, okay, if you don't play for a while, it takes a while to get back into everything. All right, Sarabande from Bach's first cello suite. Such a beautiful movement, right? Those sarabands are like, they never get old. Always a great way to calm yourself down, look inward. I love the sarabands in all the suites, really. Daryl, you like playing support? Same as me. I love to play continuo, which is like the bass line player in Baroque music. Like my favorite thing in the world is to accompany a violinist. Like I just love playing the bass line. So I play solo music, and what I like about a lot of the solo music from the Baroque period is a lot of it is in the lower register and on the lower strings, which we don't see as much as works get later into more romantic period, and later we get way up to fingerboard high stuff for solo music. But I really like the cello for being in a deep, low register. That's where I love to play too. And yes, Bach cello suites really sound different every time you hear them, even by the same performer. That's the beauty of them. There's so much depth that they really can be different every time. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap up probably in the next 15 minutes or so. So if you have any lingering questions, be sure to throw them in the chat. I'm going to keep playing Bach, I guess. I'll play a little more Bach, and then if there's any time left over, I'll play some of these 17th century pieces by degli Antoni. A little jig, under tempo though, under tempo, because my body is still remembering how to play. Oh man, the Fantasia on a Theme by Thomas Tallis, that is like one of the most beautiful things ever. I haven't heard it in so long, but I actually remember loving it in high school. Really beautiful piece. All right, a little courant, maybe keep it under tempo. Oh, hey, Mad, so you are thinking of being a music teacher. Any tips? Well, it depends what kind of music teacher you want to be. I assume you want to be like an orchestra teacher. But definitely look into schools that have good music education programs, because it really makes such a difference, like how college sets you up to be a music teacher. Like some schools with really good music education programs give you so much good like materials and advice, and you really go into teaching feeling super prepared, and like you have all the stuff you need to be a great teacher and all the resources. Actually, where I went to school, the Hart School of Music in Hartford, Connecticut, has a great music ed program. I know Ithaca College in upstate New York has a great music ed program. So I don't know where you are, but definitely look into schools that care about music education and making that something that's really important. But sounds like you're already doing great, and I think being a music teacher is one of the greatest ways to keep classical music alive. So that's awesome. Okay, a little under-tempo courant from Bach's First Cello Suite. All right, so I think I'm actually going to wrap up the stream now. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. It was super awesome. I'll come up over here a little bit closer. I guess I don't need my chair. So yeah, so this is my somewhat new streaming setup. I'm going to see what I can do with getting everything completely in sync. Sorry for the noise, there's stuff going down in the basement. This is the excitement. You get into my home and all the excitement that entails being here. Running cats, people in the basement. So yeah, I'm hoping to do more streams like this and keep working on getting the audio and the video quality better and more in sync. It was awesome to have you guys here this time and for all your questions. I super appreciate it. If you happen to be new to my channel, be sure to subscribe. And the cool thing about being subscribed is I think they actually will email you when I go live, which is really cool. And then of course it'll let you know when I'm posting new videos for the most part. If you really liked what you saw and you want to see more streams, as I mentioned earlier, my Patreon is really what allows me to do these YouTube videos and keep things going all the time. So if you want to consider becoming a patron, you can pledge as little as $1 a video. I usually do 4 videos a month, so that's $4 a month, but it makes a huge difference to me and helps me keep making these videos and doing these streams. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope to see you next time. If you have lingering questions or you're watching this as the archive, feel free to leave those questions in the comments. And I will see you next time. Find me everywhere as Emily Plays Cello. All right, bye guys.